Hey everybody, my name is Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on my channel. So, for the first time in about 14 months or so, 15 months or whatever it might be, since January 2020, I finally went back to a movie theater this weekend. With all the stuff from the pandemic, obviously, you know, theaters have been shut down for the most part, and we're finally starting to get back to a place where, you know, movie theaters are opening back up, and theaters are starting to get new movies that are worth watching. Some of them have been allowed to be streamed online on different apps like Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever it might be, but A Quiet Place 2 was not one of those films that was going to be offered on, you know, any streaming service. So I ventured out for the first time to go see a movie in a theater since Bad Boys for Life, which was in January of last year. And I got to tell you, I missed it a lot, and I'm so glad that it was time to come back and do that. And I finally got my big bag of popcorn and big soda drink that I've been missing, and obviously just the big screen and the sound systems, the whole 9 yards here. And I thought for the most part, the theater I went to did a pretty good job of you know, adhering to, you know, regulations and things like that with, you know, hand sanitizers, masks, distancing, and all things like that. So I felt very safe for the most part. I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to control people once you get into the movie theater itself. People are going to do what they do sometimes, but I thought for the most part everybody was pretty respectful for each other. So in that regard, big ups to the AMC theater that I went to here in my hometown. But I want to do a quick review here for A Quiet Place Part 2, and if you've not seen the movie, don't worry about me spoiling anything until about midway through this when I hit the spoiler warning. So if you've not seen it yet, don't worry. I'm just going to kind of give you a vague idea of what I thought about the film itself. Obviously, the first Quiet Place film was a little bit of a success story that a lot of people didn't really see coming. Obviously, the trailers came out. I was intrigued by it immediately just based on the premise alone, where if you're not quiet, you know, aliens will come and kill you. So I really liked that premise itself, and I thought, you know, obviously with John Krasinski starring in it and Emily Blunt, they had me hooked from the opening trailer, but nobody quite saw the success, I think, of that film coming. And when it became such a success, obviously, you know, even though it appeared the first film was written to be a standalone movie from the most part, from the looks of it, they obviously decided to do a sequel. And of course, if this one does well, I'm thinking a third might be on the way to maybe round out a trilogy here, but we'll see what they do. Again, I really like the first film, and I do like this film. I think this film was done very well. There's a few little minor nitpicks, especially when it comes to the ending a little bit for me. But I thought the opening sequence of this movie, for sure, the first 20 minutes or so, is basically, you know, kind of telling a little bit of how this all started, and I thought that was very well done, and it had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. This whole film in general kind of had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, which is something, you know, some movies don't do sometimes with me. I'm not the biggest horror movie guy in the world, but I don't know if I really put this in the horror category. This is more of a sci-fi alien invasion type thing, which if you've seen the first film, you know that. But I mean, it does have some horror elements in it, kind of like jump scares and things like that. But the mystery of the whole thing is what really gets me. And I really enjoy, like, learning, you know, what's exactly happening, what caused this to happen, and where is this all going, things like that. And, of course, the human stories with the family here, the Abbott family, and all that. And, of course, the people they encounter in this second film, because they have to venture out of their home, because after the first film, obviously, their home has been destroyed, basically. They have nowhere to stay. So they've got to find somewhere to go and try to, you know, survive. And that idea right there is intriguing, because in the first film they were kind of held up in their own house, you know, with all the things that they had to prepare. Now they're kind of on their back foot a little bit. They've got to figure out what they're going to do, especially, you know, after the first film with John Krasinski's character Lee, the father of this family, sacrificed himself so his kids could live. Again, minor spoiler for that movie, but if you're seeing this review, obviously you've seen the first film. So, yeah, I mean, I just thought this was well done. A lot more kind of the same type of stuff from the first film. If you enjoyed the first film, the second one also has more of that. And there's a couple scenes kind of like the nail scene in the first film, or the pregnancy scene where she gives birth in the tub. There's some things like that that are very well done. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that, and things like that to really make you go, But it's a very good watch, and I definitely enjoyed this being my first experience back in the theater as well. And it was nice to see John Krasinski get on the screen before before the movie started and welcome everybody back, thanking everybody to come back to the theaters, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be hesitant to do so. But I think if you're going to go check out something anytime soon, this is a good one to go check out, especially if you're a fan of the first film. So definitely go check this out. I highly recommend it. It's very, very good, and I really want to see a third one. I'm not going to lie. I'm just kind of curious after the ending exactly where they're going to take this. I'm kind of wondering what the end game would be. Now, I know, like I said, the first film felt like it was written as a standalone, but of course, once it makes money, Hollywood wants more. So, I mean, I have faith in John Krasinski. He's written these two films to perfection for the most part. And, I mean, there's a few little minor nitpicks, which I'll get into my spoiler section here. But for the most part, I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I had a good time with it. So definitely go check it out. So with that being said, I'm going to get into my spoiler section here, so I'm going to hit the spoiler warning. So if you've not seen the film, go ahead and check out now, and then come back once you've seen it, and then I'll get into all the details moving forward. Okay, so obviously this movie starts out with a bit of a flashback sequence, which John Krasinski appears in again here. Now, since he did die in the first film, we do get to see him come back in this film for at least a good 20-minute scene here. Kind of showing how all of this started, where they were when everything first went down before which we got little teases at in the first film. But this time we see it, in all of its glory. We see him in town, obviously, and then, of course, they go to this baseball game where his kids or one of his kids are playing. And, of course, they all see this big fireball in the sky coming down. So, obviously, aliens have crash landed on Earth here, or invaded most likely. But we still don't know exactly what their intentions are or things like that. They really didn't get into a whole lot of that in this film. It's just like, hey, they came from space, they're here, and now they're murdering everybody. And some of these sequences at the beginning, especially when they first attack this small town outside of New York, I believe is where it's set. It was very frightening to see some of the stuff. I mean, it had some jump scares in it. Even I, jumped a few times in the theater because obviously those big speakers, you haven't seen or you haven't heard rather in a good 15 months. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a difference. So compared to watching things at home, so I appreciated that stuff out of it. And of course, John Krasinski does a great job with his character here. I hated that he died in the first film. I understand it, especially if you're writing it as a one-off film. Why not do so? And don't get me wrong, I thought many times during this movie that they were going to find a way to bring back John Krasinski's character, and maybe he didn't actually die, because we saw the alien hit him, but we never actually saw his body. So a part of me kind of felt like, all right, maybe he survived and they found a way to write him into the sequel, and maybe we'd get that by the end of the movie. But that did not happen. And the more I think about it, the more I'm glad that did not happen, because it takes away from his sacrifice in the first film if they were to do that. So, I understand. Obviously, I'm a big proponent for bringing back Iron Man in the MCU at some point, because that's what comic books do. But there's a lot of people who would rather Tony just stay dead, because that would dishonor his sacrifice that he did make in that movie. So I understand that argument. And in this case, I think it might be a good move for Krasinski not to, resurrect his character, so to speak. But if we were to see him in yet another flashback, maybe after everything started, and, maybe setting up some of his household, security measures and things like that in the third film, if they were to bring him back in a third film for another flashback scene, I think I'd be okay with that too, because I do like seeing John Krasinski in these films, obviously with his wife Emily, and Emily Blunt does a great job in this movie too. So, but maybe just not bringing his character back completely, maybe that's a good way to go with this here, and I'm sure he wants to keep it that way, to keep his character dead. But as for Emily Blunt and the two kids in this film, two kids and of course the little baby, but the two kids in this film, they do a great job. Millicent Summons and Noah Jupe, I think that's how you pronounce their names. They do a great job in this as well. A lot of this movie is centered around the young little deaf daughter who she gets this, or they've been listening to the radio stuff, and she's been hearing this Beyond the Sea song that's been playing, the classic Beyond the Sea song, and it's been playing on loop, and she's starting to think it's a bit of a message for people who have survived, and maybe it's a place to go. So she thinks if there's a way to get beyond the sea, so to speak, to an island, and maybe there's been some survivors out there. so she comes up with this plan to go out and find them and take her cochlear implant that she used at the end of the first film to, with the speaker, to kind of use that as protection, and to go out and, tell these people about how to survive by using this and using it to their advantage. So she goes out without her mother's permission. And of course, before all this happens, they ended up traveling to find Cillian Murphy's character. Cillian Murphy, obviously from The Dark Knight. He did a good job playing Scarecrow in those films. Cillian Murphy plays a character named Emmett. He's an old friend of Lee's that you meet early in this movie when they're playing at the baseball game, and now he's a survivor of this whole thing who's lost his family, especially his wife and things like that. So he's in a place where he's alone, and he's pretty well thinking it's over and there's no hope left. And of course, Cillian Murphy's acting in this is outstanding. He has a few emotional scenes, especially with the little deaf girl, and she is, telling him, we can still hope and we can still do this, and he's just like, no, just forget it. We're going back. Where your mom sent me to go save you, and I'm taking you back to her. And of course, if you stay at where he's holding out, it's probably not going to last for very long because they don't have any food, or not enough food for everybody. And eventually you do have to find a way out and find a way to live still if you're going to survive. And of course, he doesn't want to deal with that, but she convinces him to help her to get across the sea, so to speak, and find these survivors and figure out a way to beat these things. And of course, this whole time, since Emily Blunt has sent him out to find her, she's still back with her boy Marcus, which early on in the film, when they found Emmett, which in a terrifying scene, they're trying to just walk through, and of course they trip a few booby traps that Emmett has laid for the creatures, and in doing so, the little boy Marcus gets caught in a bear trap, and it is a brutal scene. It's one of those scenes that, kind of like the nail scene or the tub scene in the first film, where it's just like, oh my, they shoot it in such a way, and of course the kid can't scream, because if he does, the aliens are going to come. Of course, he can't help it. He's going to scream, because if you get your leg caught in a bear trap, that is brutal. And it's a very well done scene. It makes you cringe, and it makes you sit on the edge of your seat, because you don't know if an alien is going to come, and of course it does. And of course, Emily Blunt's character and the little girl use the cochlear implant attack, and of course they kill it, so they knew how to take care of it. But at the same time, it's just a heart-wrenching scene. It's like, oh my gosh, this poor kid. And of course, throughout this film, he's tried to deal with that pain. He's tried to get back on his feet, so to speak, so they can survive. But so they're held up at Emmett's place, and it's kind of like a vault almost, but you can only leave it closed for like 30 seconds or something like that before you run out of oxygen inside this vault. And of course, it leads to a very suspenseful scene later where the kid, while the mother goes out to try to find him more medicine and things like that, so and of course an alien shows up in the area and tries to get to him, and he has to close himself in there with the little baby. And of course, the baby's got an oxygen tank for the little bed that the child's laying in, and he accidentally closes this vault without the protective cloth to kind of keep it to where you can open it and close it, so he can't open it again. And so he's starting to run out of breath, and he has to use the baby's oxygen and kind of share it with the baby. And it's really a difficult scene to watch, because the baby's crying, and he feels like he shouldn't be taking it from a baby, so he's really conflicted. He's trying to survive at the same time, and it's just shot very well. John Krasinski does a great job as director here, as well as a writer and actor. It's just very well done. And of course, Emily Blunt gets back in time to help out, and of course they get attacked, and it's a whole thing where they're held up in this location. But that's kind of where their characters' arcs go in this. And of course, there's a great scene when she's coming back with the aliens there, where Emily Blunt has to use her surroundings and a sprinkler system and things like that to kind of use to her advantage to fight these things. And it's a great scene that's shot here, and I think Emily Blunt's acting is stellar in this once again. And of course, with Reagan, which is the little deaf girl, and Emmett, the Cillian Murphy's character, when they finally they tried to get across the sea, so they need boats, or a boat, to get across the sea. So they come across this boat dock, and of course this boat dock is inhabited by all these people who have lost hope, gone crazy, because at some point you do lose hope as a human being when something like this is going on, and you feel like you have no chance. And of course they're attacked, about ready to take captive here, when Cillian Murphy's character learned sign language earlier in the movie from John Krasinski's character to dive, and of course he tells Reagan to kind of dive into the water. And of course when that happens, there's a scrub, and the aliens hear it, so they attack, and they kill all the crazies for the most part. But then they try to get to Cillian Murphy's character Emmett in the water, and then that's when you find out the creatures cannot swim. So we find out another bit of information here about these aliens, and that humans could use to their advantage. They have trouble with this cochlear implant and the speaker, and they cannot swim. So that is why once they get on this boat, they travel to this island where there's a bunch of survivors, and there are no creatures on the island. So it's like normal life over there. Nobody's is worried. Everybody could talk. They could just have normal daily activities like campfires and barbecues and, you know, good times like we enjoy in real life. And, you know, it works out pretty well for the most part until we find out a little bit later once they get there that one of the creatures at the boat dock attack is on a boat, and it is drifted to that island. So now the island has one creature on it, and once that's discovered, you know, everybody talking and everything, it draws the creature into the camp, so to speak, and it murders just about everybody. And they try to draw it away from all the people there. They get in a car and are honking their horn to try to race away. And of course, by doing that, we get Jaimon Hansu, who was in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and I believe Captain Marvel. He's got a small part of this before he meets his unfortunate fate here. But they do a good job of getting away, and of course they go to the place where the signal from this radio that she heard beyond the sea from is being broadcast from, and she wants to go there so she could stick the cochlear implant on the radio waves. That way, anybody who's hearing the signal can use the cochlear implant to attack these things, and they can start to fight back. So the film basically ends up with, you know, them trying to get into the radio station, and to do that, and of course, there's an alien stalking them the whole way through. And my minor nitpick on this is the ending almost mirrors the ending of the first film a little bit, because as she's trying to do that, obviously it looks like Emmett's going to die because he pretty much, you know, seals her into the radio room with the microphone and all that stuff. And of course, she once again, you know, takes the cochlear implant and uses it to their advantage, as, you know, once she's able to, you know, broadcast this throughout the radio waves here, she's able to use that, and to, you know, of course, the thing is, you know, disoriented with that sound, and she and her brother, in a great scene where her brother steps out of the vault because they're still being, you know, stalked by one as well, and they kind of go side by side, the daughter and the son both kill an alien, you know, in mirror images of each other, both of them rising up to the occasion to end this film. So, I mean, that part was great. I love that part about it. It was very poetic, seeing the father or the son and the daughter kind of, you know, step into the role of their father that is no longer around. So I thought that was very poetic and very well done. And it's going to, obviously, it looks as if there is a third film, now that cochlear implant is being broadcast over radio waves throughout the entire country, at least. I don't know how far that reaches, but it's going to give anybody the ability who has that radio to fight back against these creatures finally, and maybe we'll get a bit of a try to retake our home movie in the third film. I'm not sure where John Krasinski actually has and where he's going to take this, but I'm highly intrigued to see where this goes, and maybe we find out, you know, another strength that the aliens have, and maybe it's going to push back a little bit more. I don't know, but I'm definitely intrigued to see maybe where he takes the third film, now that they've kind of given the humans a little bit more of an advantage moving forward as a whole, and not just one family knowing how to combat them. Now a lot of people are going to start to understand that, hey, we can fight them with this radio signal that is going out here that is affecting these creatures. So I'm looking forward to see where they go. But the real question is here, what do you guys think? But I'll tell you right now, I thought this was a great film. Definitely go check it out. It is a good movie to go back to theaters on. I highly recommend it. Quiet Place 2, now played in theaters around the world. But like I said, the real question here is, what do you guys think about this movie? Comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you also get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on the channel. And until our next video, guys, take care.